spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And my guest today is Heather. Heather and I met on social media, which is how I've met, as you know, almost everyone that I have on my podcast. And I'm excited to have her with us today. So, Heather, I want you to just start by telling us a little bit about yourself so that our listeners know more about you and who you are.
Hey, I'm Heather. I'm really happy to meet everybody. And come find me on social media and stuff because I'm really excited about what Melinda's doing about the International Women's Motorsports Association. So a little bit about myself is I feel like 20 different jobs. I have I have sort of two main things in my life. I have my life's work, which is my teaching. I have a program, I have outdoor education resources on a site called teachoutside.org. Then I have my own outdoor school called Outside School. And I do that. I live in the East, we call it the East Bay, but specifically it's the East San Francisco Bay. So I'm 5 miles north of Berkeley. And we're just east of Richmond, California. Really, really busy area. Yeah, lots of traffic. Also incredibly beautiful, nice blue skies. I picked this time of day because it's typically fogless. During the summer months, we're pretty foggy in the mornings and afternoons. But 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, pretty solid for blue skies. So I have my teaching is my life's work. My husband and I also have a small business, and we it's like a Halloween and horror merchandising business. But we also make movies. So we make San Francisco documentaries and some horror-based documentaries. So in my extra spare time, I'm also a movie producer. And then my passion in my life is motorsports, and I'm really extra bonus grateful to actually work in motorsports now. And I have a few, because I have 20 different jobs, I have a few different things I do. I started off as a volunteer with SCCA, and then moved on to working for Sonoma Raceway. Sometimes I course marshal. It's not quite as fun for me as the other things, but I also head up tech inspection for drifting. And I am an EMT firefighter at the track too, which is an absolute thrill. I was a volunteer pit lane firefighter for a while, then got hired on at Sonoma. And after I was doing that a couple of years, they said, well, we need you on a truck, so you need to become an EMT. So when I was 48 years old, I became an EMT, so I could ride on the safety trucks, which is really awesome. And then the bulk of my time these days is spent managing Team Faruk. So I manage Pro 1 Formula Drift driver Faruk Kawai. And it's been an incredible experience. I feel like I've had all these various life experiences, and basically I feel like I'm taking all those life experiences and condensing them into this little ball and then just throwing it out and doing just massively using all of the different life skills I've ever had, pull it all together, and then make this work. A friend recently pointed out that we have this little tiny team, but we're doing all these things at a really high professional level, and what's really needed is a racing mom. And so this guy started calling, and this happens in so many parts of my life where younger people will kind of hang out with me or whatever. And at this big event last December called Winter Jam, this group of, you know, kids started calling me mom. And then over the weekend, I was talking with a colleague and he's like, well, you're drift moms. Like, I think, and then he called me that. And then the next day I ended up talking for a couple hours with one of the local drift girls and realized, okay, I think the drift mom thing is going to kind of stick, you know, that I tend to fall into this role of being authoritative but helpful and try to pull everybody together and all this stuff. So but managing Faruk has been really awesome. So those are the various things I do.
Wow, Heather, I'm just sitting here thinking, when I was 30 years younger, that would have been me doing a whole bunch of different stuff at the same time. But
Right.
now that I'm 64, I don't want to do all that. But you're
Right.
obviously younger than I am, and you've got lots of energy to manage all of that. Just to know what day it is and where you're supposed to be and what hat you have on is probably the first challenge of the day. So I'm pretty impressed with all that you do. So let's talk a little bit first about the racing part. What exactly, when you say you manage the team, what exactly does that entail?
Well, you know, you mentioned, Reed, about making sure people have the right, or I have the right hat on. I swear that 62.4% of my job is making sure that everybody has the right hat on at the right time. So, you know, it's managing all these things. I'm managing calendars. I'm making sure that all the latest technical regulations that come out are being published within the team. Managing meetings of various sorts. I'm constantly looking for sponsors, and then maintaining the partnerships that we currently have, which are all the most amazing business partnerships, and making sure we're producing the right social media content, making sure we produce various technical movies for some of our partners. So I have to just get everybody together and make sure everything is happening when it needs to happen. And so it's a small amount of herding a small amount of cats.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
So not always easy, but doable, well, I would say.
Totally doable, not always easy. Definitely there are, you know, challenges on a daily basis, but also I'm also working with the most awesome people too. So everybody we work with is passionate about what they do, and everybody is a good team member. Like whenever there is a difficulty, we all make sure it all works, no matter whether it's within the team or with a partner or anywhere else. Everybody has the same common goal. And so everybody is working constantly to push forward and just become better and better.
Well, that's a good thing, because not all teams work in the same direction. So it's important that that makes things easier really from the start, if everybody knows the goal and knows how to get there. So that's pretty interesting. Now you talk about drifting, so you're going to have to explain a lot of that. Now, I mean,
Sure.
I've seen it on the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's about as much as I know about drifting. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about that, and where do they race and how, just explain it to us.
Okay. I'll just tell you a little bit about my first introduction to drifting. I was actually doing, this was 10 years ago now. I was chairing local Bay Area street survival schools. And one of my instructors was a drifter. And so after the end of the day, all the instructors could go out and use the courses to just have fun once the kids left. So he took me drifting, and everybody thinks that I was laughing. I must have been laughing, but I swear I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I thought he was going to kill me. I'm like, we're sliding towards this pole. And then the next time we went to the same location, he showed me the tire marks. I'm like, I think you're going to kill me. And he's shown me the tire marks and how far away from the pole they were. And he's like, I wasn't going to kill you. Look, we were 15 feet away. But anyway, it's a controlled slide that uses a lot of power. And it's very dramatic. So I've recently come to learn that they call road racing, they call that grip racing. I'm like, that's just racing. Like, why do you have to call it grip? But so it's a controlled slide. I am learning how to do this myself. And I'm gonna have this part about the movies. So basically, the easiest thing to do, people who are into drifting are probably going to kill me for however I describe this, but basically you have a limited slip or a welded differential to help your rear wheels spin at the same speed instead of different speeds. It's like you surprise the car into into a slide. I'm on the donut, on the right-handed, left-handed, and figure 8 phase of learning how to drift. But you basically, when you want to initiate a drift, you let up on the throttle and then immediately punch the throttle and do your steering input. And then the car just goes. And it starts to go sideways, and then you have to regulate the throttle and the steering so that you control where the car is sliding. Because otherwise you're just going to spin out and maybe kill it or whatever. And I can't even tell you how much fun it is. It's just a ball, throwing a 3,000 or more pound machine around. And so the car I'm learning in is actually just, it's a BMW E46 with a welded diff, and that's its only modification. And I'm actually still in first gear, which is sort of ridiculous, but it's fun. And anyway, Faruk brings us to a whole other level. Oh my gosh, there's so much to say about drifting. Okay, I still have to come back to the movie part. So Faruk, he's at a whole other level. He's a Pro 1 Formula Drift driver. So he's at the top level of drifting motorsports. And they compete nationwide, and it's streamed worldwide, which is really cool. Their season's gonna start in September this year because of the pandemic. But we're expecting it to be amazing with all the live streaming and stuff. So that's different because it's a competition based on style. So they have a lead follow. And so they, at the beginning of the day, judges will explain the course and explain what the drivers would have to do to make a perfect score. Then 2 drivers will make a run. One is the leader, one's the follower. And then they make a run, and then they switch, so the follower becomes the leader. And then they're based on style. The winner of each round is based on the style of what they're doing. And so that's also completely opposite of what I'm doing in the low-powered street car, because he's got 1,000 horsepower 2JZ GTE Nissan S14 with a gigantic BorgWarner 9280 turbo in it, and like these DeatschWerks fuel injectors, sorry, I'm getting it wrong, fuel pumps, and these awesome Nuke fuel rails and all this stuff. It's like the fueling system is so intense, and they run E90 ethanol, so it's this 1,000 horsepower monster of a machine. And the cool thing is, I actually never saw drifting in the movies until recently. I was talking with a potential partner, and he's like, "Oh, did you see Tokyo Drift? You have to see Tokyo Drift." And I hadn't, and I thought that was really lame that I'd never seen Tokyo Drift. And I'm into the drifting scene, and it was so funny because, like, really, that's how this is portrayed in the movies. It's it was so vanilla. Like when you're actually at the track, like, you cannot get the smell of the rubber out of your nose. It's like you're really burning rubber. Like by the end, your tread is gone from your tires. There's so much wheel smoke. And then in the movies, I actually learned this because I'm learning, because in addition to everything else, I'm learning how to be a stunt driver. So I learned in the movies, they actually use WD-40 to make the wheel smoke. They're not even really trying to make the tire smoke. And I think that that really showed, because I was watching Tokyo Drift. I'm like, this is super lame compared to actual drifting, because there's just so much noise and so much power. And then when you see the cars running together, they call it tandem. When they run together, they just have it's my husband describes it as like a dance, and it really is. And sometimes so the other thing Faruk does is he manages Sonoma Drift, which is at Sonoma Raceway. It's more than 20 weekends a year. And there's this event called Winter Jam in December that's 360 drivers, 4,000 spectators come out even in the rain. It's freezing. Well, not compared to most places in the country, but California freezing. And it's just the noise and excitement and camaraderie, and drift kids, and it's just such a great environment. And I don't think that that can be portrayed in media as it is in real life. It's a really, really visceral experience to be drifting, or even just going to a drift event.
So Sonoma must be the main maybe place where they do that, but do they do this all over the United States?
I think there's a certain crowd who will do it on the street when it's safe, but it's super illegal. And I think that I think various tracks will have drift events. I don't know a lot about them though. Like I know last year Faruk went and announced up in Seattle at an event called DriftCon. So that was up in Seattle. Then SEMA, they have Ignite at the end of SEMA, where they have drifting after the vehicle parade of cars leaving the showroom floor. You know, actually, I don't know if it's as big around the country as it is here in California. And then, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting about things like there's Grid Life, which is a series that runs around. So Formula Drift runs around, and then there's Grid Life, and they have grip events and drift events as part of and then music as part of their festival. So there are various series that travel around.
Okay.
And then various series at local racetracks.
Okay.
Like I know down in Southern California, people will rent a racetrack and then they'll drift on it. So
okay.
Yeah, it can be done on a skid pad,
like a California thing to me, because until I had talked to you or researched a little bit about it, I didn't really see where that, like I could go to anything very close to where I live in Michigan, but you know, I'm going to be in Arizona in the winter, so California's not that far away. So, it sounds like such a cool thing to witness. I definitely have to find a place to go and watch. And are there women that do this as well?
So not enough. There are women who do it. And that's actually, you know, I think I mentioned when I first met you, one of the reasons I decided to join the International Women's Motorsports Association is because locally we have a lot of women participating in road racing. And that's where my background was originally from. And I didn't feel as though it was that, you know, quote unquote special to be a woman in racing. But definitely now that I've become part of the drifting scene around here, not very many women are in it. And I'd say 3% women would be a generous figure. I for sure participating. And then every Wednesday when Sonoma Drift has to reopen. We're still closed right now due to the pandemic. But once it opens, there are women who show up, and they have, and then young families show up, and it's really cool. But still, I would say that it's they're more there in support of, you know, in general. You know, we also have women photographers and women marshals and women volunteers and all that. But definitely, there's a definite difference in the numbers of women, the percentages of women between road racing and drifting. And so I definitely want to advocate for more women to come out and check out the drifting scene and be part of the drifting scene, because it's really cool. It's a good group of people. It's like anywhere else that you have a racing family. You know, it's definitely a grassroots racing family, and sometimes it seems sort of like a ragtag bunch of people, but also just super sweet, amazing people, just full of heart, you know, just like you find in all the other types of racing.
Right. So, would you say, like, compared to other kinds of racing, are there more rollovers? Is it more dangerous, or how does that compare to like a regular kind of grip racing?
Yeah. Now you can't unhear that term. I would definitely say it's in general safer, from what I've seen. So I have been doing tech inspections for the last dozen or so years, again, starting off in road racing, last year becoming involved with tech for both drag racing and drifting, actually. And drag racing honestly scared me. I wasn't really fond of doing the tech inspections for that, especially for the purpose-built dragsters. They're intense machines. But I have yet to see a rollover in drifting, but I'd see them constantly when I'm working for the road racing. That's kind of putting it maybe a little too dramatically. Maybe it's not constant, but it's way more prevalent in road racing and track days than it is with drifting. Again, I haven't seen a rollover, but the cars that run tandem have to have a roll cage just in case. And they also have an anti-intrusion door bars in case they hit each other or another object from the side. So they have to have two door bars going forward from the main roll hoop. And then the interesting thing, is that to get the wheel speed, you have your car's wheels, the rear wheels, are turning fast, but the car itself is moving very slowly in comparison. So it's hard to say how fast the car is actually going, but I'll give you one example, is that Faruk's car will go, I want to say it's 120, but just in case I'm wrong, 100 miles an hour. But the car's not itself moving 100 miles an hour. It's moving certainly very, very, very quickly, but the wheels are going 100 miles an hour.
Okay.
So it's a slower speed. But if things go wrong, those wheels are turning that speed. So you have to be really, really careful. Right. Things can go horribly wrong. But definitely, I would say in general, from everything I've seen to date, way safer drifting than road racing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued by it. I can't wait to figure out how to come and watch this. So what's your favorite thing about being involved in motorsports in general?
Oh man. There's two sides of that. One is the people, because there's a motorsports family, and you don't have to explain that to other people. You don't have to explain why you love it, because you all love it. And so there's a camaraderie and a brother and sisterhood that comes from the love of motorsports. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of it, I can't get enough of the sensory overload of racing. It's the intense sound, like when you have to wear earphones. Wow, that is so loud, and like if you don't wear them, it's going to damage your hearing, in the long term, but in the short term it actually hurts. But then there's the smell of it, like the smell of the exhaust. Definitely with drifting, the smell of the rubber, it can be really overwhelming sometimes, but it gets into you and you start to love it. And then also just when you're around these powerful cars and the vibrations travel into your body. I love that feeling of just that vibrational energy. Or let's say you're walking behind a race car as it starts up and you can feel the exhaust hitting your leg. Like, those, and then it's just also, it's hot and sticky and dirty and greasy and sweaty. And like, you can't not embody the experience of being at the races. And I can't get enough of that. And I'll get up, at 4 a.m. time and again to go have those experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, it basically racing gets in your blood. I mean, you try to explain to people who haven't been to, I do a lot of NASCAR stuff, or circle track. So it's the same thing. Try to explain to people the excitement, the sounds, the smells, and all of that. And they don't, they think they know, but they don't.
Right.
And especially when I was in Phoenix in March, a group of people did a tour of the of the pit area and did the garage area. And they were just like, they had no idea, like the size of the tool cabinets, and that there's a whole nother car in the hauler in case you wreck the one you're on, and all these different things. And there's so much to it that people don't understand, or they don't know what they don't know. And so those people that we took, that went on that tour, and then I talked to them. Actually, one of the guys, Charlie Cutter, is a fire person at Phoenix. And so his wife was doing the tour, so we interviewed him a little bit too about what he does. And people don't think about it. They buy the tickets to the event and they go sit in their seat and they watch the race, but there's so much more to it. And that's the part I love. I love sharing that with people and showing them the behind the scenes and what it really takes to put that car on the track for that race just for one day. Yeah. So, I love hearing the passion in your voice, because I can tell that you would have no problem getting up at 4 a.m. to go, and neither would I. Right. Never. Something that, that I would do and not think twice. But if you wanted me to get up at 4 a.m. to do something else, I probably would tell you you're crazy. So yeah, that's pretty normal. Yeah. So do you have any idea what, like, the team that you help, do you have any ballpark what a car costs, or what it costs to do like one race event? I'm going to have a way better idea once I've been doing this for a full year and we've got through a full season with me. But it's torturous to think about, because it's unfathomably expensive. And it's, I've averaged out with costs being where they should be. It's roughly $7,500 a round, if we aren't taking into consideration that people should get paid. So, and that's like 4 people staying in one hotel room and stuff. It's very, very expensive. And then, and thankfully we have so many great partners too, because we're not responsible for paying, full price or any price for a lot of the materials we have, which is massively important to us, because we're such a tiny team that we just couldn't afford it without them. So we really appreciate all their input. And thankfully, one of the things that's really cool is that Faruk is also a partner at a shop. And so it makes he actually uses these same products in the cars for the aftermarkets industry. And so there's a value that he has to the companies as well, because he's actually not just using the parts in the race car, but using them at the shop, and then also helping develop those parts as well for some of the companies that they'll send us
new materials, and we'll test them in the car and see how it works, and legitimately have input into what becomes of products, which is also another really cool aspect of all of this that not everybody gets to do.
Well, and that gives him so much more value to the sponsors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we produce the little movies, and then we've got more. So,
yeah. Do you ever sleep, or do you just like, are you constantly thinking about when you're not teaching? Because I know I want to ask you a little bit about that too, but does your mind ever shut off, or do you,
No.
No. I kind of have the same problem. I have trouble sleeping. And I have, a lot of it's because I have a bad back and all that. But sometimes it's because I've read something, or I've done something, or talked to somebody, and my mind is just twirling because I'm thinking of how we can partner and what we can do and how we can celebrate women. And so sometimes I need to figure out a way to just kind of shut that off, but that's really hard.
Yeah, I haven't figured it out. I definitely, I have no problem at all getting to sleep, but staying asleep is another issue. Like the last 2 nights, I've been up for 3 hours in the night, just awake thinking. I definitely have gone to having my laptop ready in the other room, because I definitely have discovered that I need to get the thoughts out of my head in order to try to sleep. And then I'll go off to another thought, of course. But I'll get up and go type some notes on the laptop. I won't send any email. I usually don't send any emails in the wee hours, but I usually will start an email or make some notes or whatever in the night. That definitely has helped. And then I did start a routine in the morning, because I'll tend to just my alarm will go off, I'll wake up, and I'll just start working just with this high level of intensity. And I did start a routine that integrates, it's like a mind, body, vision integration exercise that I developed as a pre-race exercise, but it involves 10 minutes of meditation, followed by some body and vision exercises, and then a visualization at the end of that too. And it sort of helps me start my day with a broader scope and a more calm scope. Although I think this might go in with the whole motorsports love thing. I think there's a certain amount of energy and drive that comes from people who are involved in motorsports also, where like maybe our baseline level is higher than your average person, that maybe our calm is somebody else's 110%. I'm still
so that would be
I don't know.
Husband is down here, and then I'm up there. He's very laid back, doesn't get excited about much of anything, and doesn't, it's like, do we really need to go right now, and that kind of thing, where I'm like ready to go. And so we need to be there 5 minutes in advance at least, and that considers all the different traffic we might have to go through and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit about your teaching, about your school and what you do. So tell us a little bit about that too.
Sure. So teaching is my second career. I guess I would say racing is my third, and they're coinciding with one another. I became a teacher after I really discovered that the bureaucratic lifestyle wasn't for me. I worked for a time when I graduated college. I worked at UC Berkeley and worked in the biology labs and various things. Had one office job for 1 year, and I can't sit behind a desk. And then just the politics involved with this hierarchical thing, I couldn't swing it. It just was not healthy. Like just working for insurance and for retirement just seemed like I wasn't living a good life. And so I became a teacher because an old boss told me I needed to be a teacher, and she was right. I think I've naturally been a teacher the whole time without ever having necessarily had realized it. And I think that's how the drift mom thing kind of comes along too. But I started exploring, do I want to get a teaching credential? And I got my child development permit and started teaching in a preschool. And realized that if I got the traditional teaching credential, I was just going to fall into the same bureaucratic thing that I was escaping from. So I actually ended up being a preschool teacher for a really long time. And a big part of that was parents telling me that I was doing what they needed me to do. One woman at the last day of school, I was so overwhelmed that first year. I swear I was sick 10 out of the 12 months. And we had 22 kids in the classroom it was 22 3.5-year-olds with 2 teachers, and one of the other teacher was part-time. It was insane. I couldn't, I felt horrible. I'm like, I should be able to tell parents at the end of the day what their kid did. And I can't. I have no idea. I have no idea what their kid did that day. And it was just so overwhelming. And I really didn't like it. But these parents would say, my family had a really rough time this year, and I was going to school, my mom died, all this stuff, and they said, but we would bring our kids here to you, and you helped us through all that, and we knew you were a solid foundation for our kids. And and I had no idea that I was having this impact on families, so I decided to stay. Fast forward a couple of years, I was really tired of cutting apples and putting down nap mats. My brain is way too active for that. And the school opened a property on the next block that became a school garden, and I became the school's garden teacher. I became much more happy. The kids, it definitely was a quieter environment because we're outside with kids. If there are 22 kids in a class, they were spread out and there weren't any walls, and definitely a better environment for everybody. And some of the teachers at first didn't really like it, and then they would find ways to not be there on their class's garden day, like, oh, but I brought this giant loaf of bread today. Like, well, could you have not brought that on your garden day? Like, why did you have to stay inside for the giant loaf of bread? Like, why not 12 of you carry it down the road and come enjoy it in the garden? There was definitely this undercutting thing to it. And then later on, it was actually after one of our coworkers died, the teachers who were averse to the garden at first realized the restorative powers of being there, which was really cool. Then that job went to part-time, so I needed more money. So I actually developed outside school. I started teaching at various public schools in their after-school programs. But that also was crazy because then I was teaching 200 kids a week at 4 different school sites. And that also was like, there'd be some kid I'd love, like this, I'd have this relationship with this kid, but I'd be like, hey, kid in the purple jacket, because I just couldn't remember their names at that point. And then that didn't work for me either. It was just, I was killing myself, carrying, I had this little red wagon with school supplies, and it was awesome. And I documented everything I did. Then I had the opportunity to teach in a forest school, which is open, no fences in a park, which was pretty amazing. But again, I think ultimately, I just needed to be my own boss. And so I turned outside school, which had been the after school program, into my own program, which is 100% outdoors, no matter the weather, year round, in Richmond, California, a mile from my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
So is it for just a certain age group, or do you have all ages?
I have all ages, actually. I have yet to actually have any teenagers, but I'm open for kindergarten through 12th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just quickly, what are some of the things that you teach them in this school?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you a very strange answer. I don't know. And that's because I gave up on having a planned curriculum. The kids are always way smarter than I am. And they lead the way. So my job is to facilitate their learning. So natural history is my thing. Science, I love. Animals, I love. Plants, I'm learning. Rocks, I'm learning. But the environment, natural history is my love. This life's work, that's part of the passion of my life, is science geekery also. So I'll just give you an example from last year where, am I going on too long, by the way?
No, go, I'm interested.
Okay, because so this last summer was one of my favorite teaching days I ever had. And let's just say, for example, I thought today, oh, hey kids, I brought a log and we're gonna have a fire in the fire pit today. And then we would have had the log in the fire pit, and that would have been our planned curriculum for the day. And it would have been awesome, right? Starting fires is awesome. But I gave up on those ideas. Instead, I have fire starting things in my car just in case it shows up. But instead, on this day, right off the bat, this kid's like, Heather, I found a dead lizard. And he has this dead lizard in his hand. And I'm like, wow, look at that. That was right at the beginning of the day. So all the parents saw the dead lizard, all the families saw the kid handling the dead lizard. And I'm like, okay, well, let's definitely, I mean, not like we would skip it anyway, but definitely let's make sure to wash hands before snack. So, and the mom, you know, she's been with me several summers now. She looks at me, she's like, it's okay. I'm not worried about it. I'm like, okay, awesome. So we all hiked off to our picnic spot, decided to, you know, it's snack time. So we stuck the lizard in the barbecue pit just for safekeeping while we had snacks. So we all went and washed our hands, came back and ate snack. And snack time is when we decide, what are we going to do for the day? And so of course the kids know that I have a dissecting kit in the trunk of my car. So the next order of business is going to my car, getting the dissecting kit. And then we had to talk about what are we going to do and when. And so we all decided, so here I am, this is the kids, you know, the kids knew I had the dissecting kit. I want to get the dissecting kit, but they told me they wanted to get the dissecting kit. So they're making the decisions. I'm there to facilitate their decision-making, and I'm there to help guide some of the decisions. I'm not the one making decisions for them. We do that together. So got the dissecting kit, talked about what should the ultimate goal with this lizard be, and we decided to take it back to where we found it to dissect it, because possibly a bird had dropped it after it got killed or died. I don't know if it got killed or died. Or there's also a coyote we were seeing every morning, and the coyote would come right past us on the path and walk down the hill past the picnic table we would gather at and go down to the creek and then follow the creek. And then later on, you could hear her in the neighborhood as neighborhood dogs would get upset that the coyote's walking past. So we thought, well, maybe the coyote had killed the lizard and dropped it when people started arriving at the park. We didn't know. So we decided to head back, got the dissecting kit out, went through all the lizard's external features, comparing them to our external features. Also in college, I took herpetology, which is the study of reptiles and amphibians. So that just tied in with my particular animal love is reptiles and amphibians. So we're tying my particular love in with this. Then the kids all wanted to see its heart. They were so excited. And so started the dissection, discovered immediately that it had been pregnant. And it was going to have, it would have had 6 babies. And then that brought in this whole ovoviviparity, which means lizards lay eggs, they're oviparous, but in this case, it's a lizard that retains the eggs within her body and doesn't form shells. So it's ovoviviparous, which means it gives a live birth. So we were able, and then I got to talk about how the uterus in many animals that have multiple babies it's bifurcated. So there were 2 embryos in one side of the uterus and 4 in the other side. And then we got to the heart, and this is tiny little thing. So we, cut the rib cage, saw the heart, and immediately the kids were so excited about the heart. We're done with the dissection because they just wanted to see the heart. So those kids actually went off and created an altar for the dead lizard. And it was amazing. They're like, and I'll get to that, but so the other kids stayed with me and finished the dissection, and then at the end, and then we dissected one of the embryos because they're in this neat little amniotic sac. And so we dissected one of those and then furled its tail, and it had the big eyes and the spine you can clearly see. It was really amazing. But then when we were done, the kids who had made the altar came over. They found an indentation in a log, and then found a piece of bark that would fit perfectly within that indentation, and brought that over for the lizard and said, this is for the royal lizard, and put the lizard on this piece of bark and carried it over. And then they each brought over an oak leaf for each embryo. And I said, the royal oak leaf for the royal embryo. And so created this altar. And that, this whole process was almost the entire day. It was from beginning of the day to the end. And so by the end of the day, ants were coming and eating the embryos. Actually, that was another cool thing about it too, is before I dissected it, we had to go through what are the definitive signs of death, because I told them I didn't want to cut into the lizard if it wasn't dead. So, we went through and looked for the definitive signs of death. It had already passed through rigor mortis and it was again floppy, but it made me a little nervous. But indeed it was dead, and we did end up toward the end of the dissection, got a little bit of the smell of decomposition. But it was really cool to actually get to talk about that. But by the end of the day, ants were coming and eating the embryos, and they were realizing that the ants' bellies became full from the dead embryos. So there was no sorrow in that. They could see the beauty of this feeding other things. And then in the next morning, everything was gone completely. Did a bird get it? Did the coyote come back? Who knows? We don't know where it went, but it was gone. And so it became part of the thing where then, like, the smallest girl in school, Heather, I hope we find a dead horse. So.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and and I'm just what was going through my head was that those kids on that day learned so many things that they would never learn in a traditional school setting.
Exactly.
And the fact that those kids made the altar and they want to see all of it. I know we're supposed to be talking about motorsports, but you know what? It all kind of, hooks together in the fact that they were all kind of working together. They were learning together. Some had this idea. Some were interested in building the altar. Some people are interested in doing the marketing. If you're on a race team,
exactly.
All had a different interest about that little poor dead lizard, that lizard. And I can just see how it ties into the same thing when you're working in any industry, whether it's motorsports or something else. Everybody kind of has their thing that they really get excited about. And even though they're all sitting there together, they're all being part of that classroom, yet they each have their individual, talents and interests. And wow, that's a great story. I love that. One of my daughters was a teacher and always wanted to be a teacher from the time she was little. And back in the days when she was in school in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s as well, she, school was different. Teaching was different. Nowadays, it's all about the scores and the funding and the this and the that. And she's like, this is not what I became a teacher for.
Exactly.
And so, you know, she knew that what she thought was her passion really ended up not being her passion. So she's moved on to doing other things. But I love that you are so passionate. I heard it in your voice about the motorsports team, the drifting team. And I hear the same passion in the teaching. And you're fortunate that you have things that you're doing in your life that you're passionate about, because so many of us in the past, or maybe now, go to work or do what we do on a daily basis, and it's not fulfilling and it's not our passion. And then we go home and we wonder what's missing in our life.
Right.
And, I don't feel like you probably ask yourself that, because I think you things that make you, you know, make you happy.
Right.
Same thing with me. My family makes me happy. Spending time with them, my grandchildren. I've got 13 and a third grandchildren. I'm going to have a grandson in October. And, you know, I'm old enough now. I want to retire. I want to go to Arizona for part of the year where two of my daughters live and some of my grandchildren. I want to be in Michigan in the summer to watch my other two older granddaughters race cars and travel with my husband in our camper. And you have to find those things, don't you, Heather? The things that make you smile and make you happy.
For sure. I definitely realized that there's only so much life to live. And I needed, you know, decided that if I wasn't happy with something, I needed to change it and become happier. And definitely I don't feel like I'm lacking for anything at this point. And I totally have to give out the biggest shout out to my husband, because I couldn't do any of this without him. You know, his support for me to go off and own my own school. And then for his helping me with motorsports, you know, like, you know, he makes sure he makes sure I get to the track safe and sound and come home safe and sound. I definitely make sure I call him when I get there and call him before I leave. But you know, he's my pit crew. You know, I have dinner waiting for me on the table when I come home at the end of the day. And also to be able to have a relationship that is so good that he understands that I have these passions and needs in my life, which not everybody has that. And I definitely, I feel fortunate on a daily basis. You know, we have San Francisco is located, you know, 10 miles that way. I can see it, and people, and I can hear the freeway right past my house. You know, right now with the pandemic, it's less busy, but from 4:30 in the morning, it's till 8:30 at night, traffic. People stuck in traffic. It was for a while when I was working in Berkeley. I was working 5.5 miles from here, and it was taking me 45 minutes in each direction. And it's just like, this is not a sustainable lifestyle. You know, so I have the park that's a mile away now, and then it's just to be able to work at, I can't even tell you how much I love working at Sonoma Raceway. And that's where Faruk's shop is, at Sonoma Raceway too. So it's amazing to wake up in the morning. Yeah, I'll have to go through some traffic, but then after that, there's marshlands and sunrise and birds and the reflection of the sky on the water and these beautiful hills, and then the constant sound of cars on the race course, whether I'm working for the race course that day or working up at Faruk's shop. It's this constant input of sensory input and emotional input and physical input and mental input. It's this constant high level of input that I need, that keeps me just really, really happy and in love with life.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely, I don't take any of this for granted.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my husband, you know, he enjoys going to the races, but he doesn't want to be there from 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. or whatever the hours might be.
Yeah.
Doing the things that I do, but he'll come, you know, when it's time to watch. Right. And one of his favorite sayings is, I don't have to live in your pocket. So in other words, we can each do the things we love, and then we come together and enjoy a lot of the same things. So, Heather, I've just enjoyed talking to you so much and hearing about your motorsports and about your school and the things that you do. And it's just been such an enjoyable conversation. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure that you share on the podcast?
I'll definitely think of something by tonight. When it's too late. I definitely feel like we talked about all the awesome things and more that I hoped we would talk about. And I guess actually here's the thing. I think just being female in what still remains a male-dominated sport, don't let that be daunting towards you. Find your mentors, because there are mentors everywhere. And if someone's not helping you, then move past them. And then also don't, like you, Melinda, I'll be 50 in September. So I think that's partially, I'm not an actual mom, but I think that's how the mom thing came about, because I am old enough to be some of these people's mom. And so don't let your age deter you either. I'm out there, I've become a team manager in this last year. I've been learning how to drift in this last year. And yeah, these are things that can cause some fears, but I think that if you're fearful, move past them. If you think, gender, race, age, all those things, just please don't let any of those things stop you if you want to try to achieve something. And the first step is the hardest. You have to make the first step, though, or you're not going to go anywhere.
That's good advice, and so true. And not just for women, but for anyone, but especially for women, because we tend to want to take care of other people. And sometimes we need to put ourselves first and do for us. And so I always try to encourage women to live their dreams and go for it, so. Well, Heather, thank you so much for giving me an hour of your day. I know you're busy, and I just love talking to you, and it's been such a pleasure to meet you and visit with you. And so we need to make sure we stay connected.
We will. I really appreciate what you're doing, Melinda. I feel your heart coming through everything that you do. And so thank you for finding me. And I really appreciate it. It was really great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at International Women's Motorsports Association, or on Instagram and Twitter at the IWMA Nation. And if you know someone that should be on our show, drop us an email at iwmanation@gmail.com.